Sigma empaths notice everything: the shift in your tone, the hesitation behind your smile, the meaning hidden between your words, yet they pretend they don't. They pick up on the energy you try to hide, the emotions you don't express, and the intentions you hoped they wouldn't see. But they won't call you out, they won't expose you, they won't even let you know they're aware. Instead, they stay silent, watching quietly, understanding everything, while giving you the illusion that nothing slipped through. Their intuition is sharper than they ever show, and their awareness runs deeper than people expect. Their act of not noticing is not ignorance, it's strategy, emotional intelligence, and self-protection. They pretend not to see the lies because they want to observe your honesty. They pretend not to notice the distance because they want to understand your intentions. They pretend not to react to the disrespect because they want to see how far you'll go when you think they aren't paying attention. Sigma empaths don't confront immediately. They watch patterns unfold. Every small shift becomes information. Every unspoken feeling becomes a clue. While others underestimate them, they're collecting truth quietly, calmly, patiently, and when they finally act, it's always with full clarity, not emotion, not confusion, not guessing. They already know who you are long before you reveal it. Before we begin the full list, let me ask you something honest. Have you ever pretended not to notice something, even though your intuition saw it instantly? Share your experience in the comments. Another empath will read it and whisper, "Same." If this speaks to you, make sure you subscribe to Brainy Empath. This is where your intuition, your strength, and your emotional depth feel understood. And if you watched until the end, type "I notice everything" to show you're one of the Sigma empaths who sees the truth long before anyone speaks it. They notice when someone's words don't match their energy. Sigma empaths feel the truth long before it's spoken, and even when someone's words sound perfectly crafted, their energy tells a completely different story. They notice the mismatch instantly. The too bright smile hiding tension, the warm words delivered with a cold tone, the apology without sincerity, the compliment wrapped in envy. While most people hear what's being said, Sigma empaths feel what's not being said. They pick up the emotional vibration beneath the sentence, the intention behind the phrasing, the subtle shift in the atmosphere when someone isn't being real. And even though they see through the performance, they don't call it out. They simply file it away in silence because they know pretending not to notice reveals more truth than confronting it. When a person's energy contradicts their words, the empath senses the truth with a clarity that borders on uncomfortable. They can feel when someone is being polite but irritated, supportive but jealous, affectionate but distant. They sense when someone is hiding something, be it insecurity, resentment, or an ulterior motive. And the moment they feel that emotional dissonance, their intuition becomes hyper-aware, observing every detail, every pause, every micro-expression. They don't expose the inconsistency because doing so would break the mask too fast. Instead, they watch the pattern unfold, giving the other person space to reveal themselves fully, and they always do. This ability to detect mismatched energy isn't a skill they learned, it's who they are. Their sensitivity acts like a radar, picking up frequencies most people gloss over. They feel emotional truth as easily as others feel temperature. But what makes them powerful is their silence. They don't challenge the lie, they don't accuse, they don't force honesty out of someone who isn't ready to give it. They wait, they observe, they let people show who they really are over time. Because Sigma empaths know something most people don't, the truth always leaks through the energy, not the words. And while they rarely confront the discrepancy, they always adjust their trust accordingly. You may think you hid it well. You may think your smile covered the truth, but the empath felt the shift the moment it happened, and they'll never unsee what your energy revealed. They notice the subtle shifts in someone's behavior long before anything is said. Sigma empaths pick up on changes that most people overlook: the softened enthusiasm, the delayed responses, the different tone, the microsecond of hesitation before answering. They feel the shift long before it's visible, long before the other person even admits it to themselves. They notice when someone stops laughing the same way, when their eyes no longer light up, when their presence feels heavier or more distant. These tiny behavioral changes speak louder to an empath than any dramatic confession ever could. And while everyone else waits for obvious signs, the Sigma empath already knows the truth. Something has shifted, and the relationship will never feel quite the same again. These subtle changes alert the empath's intuition instantly. A person who was once consistent suddenly becomes unpredictable. Someone who used to be warm becomes slightly colder. Someone who used to share openly now holds things back. To others, it looks like nothing: mood swings, stress, routine fluctuations. But the empath feels the emotional undercurrent beneath these adjustments. They sense the hidden tension, the growing distance, the internal conflict, the silent disappointment. They notice when someone's priorities are changing, when affection fades, or when loyalty begins to weaken. And although they never jump to conclusions, they keep observing, quietly collecting emotional data until the pattern becomes undeniable. What makes Sigma empaths so powerful is their ability to notice without reacting. They don't accuse, they don't panic, and they don't cling. They simply watch. They allow the person to reveal themselves at their own pace. They listen to the silence as much as they listen to the words. And while others may be blindsided when the truth finally comes out, the empath has already prepared emotionally, because they saw it in the small moments: the way someone stopped asking questions, the way they avoided eye contact, the way they started showing up differently without explanation. And though Sigma empaths pretend not to notice these shifts, they are always adjusting internally. They detach a little, they guard their heart, they create emotional space. By the time someone finally admits, "I've changed," the empath has already known for weeks. Their intuition noticed every subtle sign, every small shift, every quiet clue. They simply waited for reality to catch up to what their heart felt long before anyone spoke a word. They notice when they're being lied to, even in small ways. Sigma empaths can feel a lie before the sentence is even finished. It's not the words that alert them, it's the vibration behind them. A slight shift in tone, a micropause, a forced smile, a detail that feels too polished, an energy that doesn't match the story being told. The moment someone lies, even about something small, the empath feels a subtle ripple inside their intuition. It's a quiet but unmistakable inner pull, a tightening in their awareness that says something here is off. And while most people would dismiss small lies as harmless, Sigma empaths see them as emotional footprints, clues revealing someone's values, intentions, and emotional honesty. A small lie is never just a lie to them, it's the first crack in trust. They may not confront the lie immediately. In fact, they almost never do. Instead, they watch how the person behaves next. Do they keep adding details that don't match? Do they avoid eye contact? Does their energy shift every time the topic comes up? Do their future actions contradict the story they told? Sigma empaths study patterns, not moments. One lie doesn't make them angry, it makes them observe it. They don't explode or accuse, they simply file the information away and look for consistency, because they know that people who lie in small ways often lie in big ones. And if the energy behind the lie feels manipulative, protective, or self-serving, the empath stores that truth in silence. What makes Sigma empaths so difficult to deceive is that they don't rely on logic alone. They rely on intuition. Their nervous system picks up emotional inconsistencies that logic can't explain yet. They feel when someone is hiding guilt, shame, jealousy, or a hidden motive. And they feel when someone isn't telling the full truth, even if the lie is wrapped beautifully in charm or excuses. They may nod, they may smile, they may pretend to believe you, but inside, the bridge of trust has already taken damage. And once they notice the lie, their emotional energy shifts. They become more reserved, less open, less vulnerable. Most people realize too late that the Sigma empath knew they were lying the entire time. They expected the empath's kindness to blind them, but kindness is not blindness. Empathy is not naivety. A Sigma empath's silence is not ignorance, it's evaluation. And once they feel a lie, even a small one, they never see the person the same way again. They notice when someone is emotionally withdrawing or losing interest. Sigma empaths feel emotional distance long before it becomes visible. They notice the way someone stops responding with the same warmth, the way conversations shorten, the way enthusiasm fades from their voice. They sense the subtle cooling of energy, the quiet shifts in tone, the forced politeness, the half-hearted replies. Even if the person is trying to hide it, the empath feels the withdrawal like a drop in temperature. Their intuition reads the emotional atmosphere instantly. The connection is changing, the investment is fading. The heart on the other side is no longer reaching back. And while most people wait for obvious signs, the Sigma empath already knows the truth long before anything is spoken aloud. They pay attention to the rhythm of interactions. Someone who once shared openly now becomes guarded. Someone who once initiated conversations now responds with minimal effort. Someone who once cared about the empath's world suddenly seems distracted, detached, or indifferent. These shifts may be small, but to a Sigma empath, they speak volumes. They don't need explanations, excuses, or confessions. The energy says everything. They sense the emotional retreat in the pauses, in the delayed messages, in the subtle decrease in presence. They feel the unspoken statement behind it all. I'm not as invested as I used to be. And even though they notice it, they pretend not to, giving the other person space to reveal themselves fully. What makes Sigma empaths so emotionally intelligent is their response to this shift. They don't cling, they don't chase, they don't beg for clarity. Instead, they quietly adjust their expectations and begin withdrawing as well, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. They understand that interest cannot be forced, that emotional investment must be mutual, that connections die not from conflict, but from silence. And once they feel someone pulling away, the empath stops offering the depth they used to give so effortlessly. They match the energy gently, silently, and with heartbreaking accuracy. By the time the other person finally admits, I've changed, the Sigma empath has already known for weeks. They already detached emotionally, they already shifted their heart inward, because they noticed the soft unraveling of the connection the moment it began. And while they may never mention it, they will never forget the exact moment they felt the distance, the moment the relationship began to fade. They notice when others take advantage of their kindness or empathy. Sigma empaths can feel the exact moment someone stops appreciating their kindness and starts expecting it. They notice when gratitude fades and entitlement begins. They notice when their emotional support becomes something people rely on without reciprocating. They notice when someone only reaches out in moments of crisis, never in moments of joy. They notice when people take their listening, caring, and understanding as obligations rather than gifts. Even the smallest shift, a tone of assumption, a lack of acknowledgement, a pattern of always receiving and never giving, rings loudly in the empath's intuition. And while they may continue offering kindness for a while, they never remain blind to how someone treats their heart. At first, they give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the person is stressed, maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe they don't realize they're becoming dependent on the empath's emotional strength. But as the pattern repeats, the Sigma empath begins to see clearly this isn't temporary, this isn't mutual, this is someone feeding off their compassion without offering anything in return. They notice the imbalance in effort, attention, emotional labor, and loyalty. They notice when their empathy is being used as a cushion, as a comfort zone, as a place someone retreats to only when convenient. And they notice how easily some people forget the empath's needs, feelings, and boundaries when they themselves are satisfied. Yet the most powerful thing is this: Sigma empaths do not confront immediately. They don't explode, they don't accuse, they simply shift. They start giving less and observing more. They stop offering emotional rescue on demand. They stop sacrificing their energy for people who drain it. Their kindness becomes selective. Their empathy becomes intentional, not automatic. They quietly recalibrate what the other person has earned, not what they assume they deserve. And in doing so, the empath slowly removes themselves from the dynamic without causing chaos, because they know the truth doesn't need to be shouted to be powerful. By the time the other person realizes they've lost access to the empath's emotional warmth, it's too late. The Sigma empath had already noticed the exploitation long before. They had already begun detaching. They had already learned the lesson. And once they understand someone has been taking advantage of their kindness, they never offer it in the same way again. Their empathy remains deep, but no longer for those who mistake it for weakness or convenience. They notice manipulation attempts the moment they happen. Sigma empaths are impossible to manipulate, not because they're suspicious, but because their intuition catches subtle shifts in intention before a single word is spoken. They notice the emotional pressure in someone's tone, the calculated phrasing meant to guilt trip them, the sudden sweetness that appears only when the other person wants something. They feel the moment someone shifts from honesty to strategy, a pause that lasts a little too long, a compliment that feels rehearsed, a question that's actually a trap. Other people might fall for the performance, but the Sigma empath feels the emotional fingerprints all over it. They sense the hidden motive immediately, and while they may act unbothered, inside they've already clocked the manipulation attempt with perfect clarity. When someone tries to twist their emotions, the empath feels the tension under the surface. When someone plays the victim, they notice the exaggeration. When someone tries to provoke jealousy, they detect the insecurity driving it. When someone uses guilt as leverage, the empath sees the intention behind the words more clearly than the words themselves. They can tell when someone is pretending to be confused, pretending to care, pretending to apologize. Manipulation doesn't confuse them, it reveals the person's character. And instead of reacting emotionally, they quietly switch into observation mode, letting the other person expose more than they realize. Sigma empaths don't fall for manipulation because they see the emotional architecture behind it. But what truly makes them powerful is their response: silence, distance, and emotional neutrality. They don't call out the manipulation because calling it out teaches nothing. Instead, they withdraw the exact resource the manipulator wants: attention, energy, empathy, or compliance. They stop reacting, stop feeding the dynamic, stop giving the emotional fuel that manipulation relies on. Their calmness becomes a barrier, their quietness becomes a mirror, and their emotional control becomes the one thing the manipulator cannot penetrate. And the moment the Sigma empath stops responding, the manipulation dies instantly. By the time the manipulator realizes their tactics failed, the empath is already gone internally, because once a Sigma empath sees someone try to control or influence them dishonestly, they never trust that person again. They will stay polite, they will stay composed, but the emotional door is already closed. They felt the manipulation the moment it happened, and that moment was all they needed to walk away quietly, permanently, and with their peace intact. They notice who supports them genuinely and who only does it for convenience. Sigma empaths have a unique sensitivity to intention. They don't just see what someone does, they feel why they do it. So when people show support, the empath immediately senses whether it comes from genuine care or hidden convenience. They notice the ones who stand by them quietly, consistently, without expecting anything in return. And they also notice the ones who only appear when it benefits them, when the empath is useful, or when supporting them creates an image, not a connection. The moment someone's support feels transactional, conditional, or performative, the Sigma empath registers it instantly. They may not say a word, but the shift is deeply felt, because for them, sincerity is everything. They pay attention to the patterns most people ignore: who checks in when there's nothing to gain, who listens without rushing the conversation back to themselves, who celebrates their wins without jealousy or competition, who offers help without needing to be asked. These small, quiet acts reveal true loyalty, the kind the empath values above all else. On the other hand, they see through the ones who show up only when the empath is needed, for emotional support, for validation, for stability. They notice the friends who disappear when life gets inconvenient, who offer praise only when it benefits their image, who resurface only when the empath's energy is useful again. To most people, these differences are subtle. To a Sigma empath, they're glaring. Yet, despite noticing everything, Sigma empaths don't confront or expose people. They don't beg for genuine loyalty. They don't punish those who offer conditional support. Instead, they simply shift their place in the relationship. They give less to those who give little. They open their heart to those who show real consistency. They invest energy only where sincerity flows naturally. Their intuition silently reorganizes their circle, not out of drama, but out of alignment. And over time, the ones who were only around for convenience find themselves gently phased out, receiving less attention, less emotional access, and less of the empath's depth. By the time someone realizes they've lost their place in the empath's world, it's already done. Sigma empaths never announce the change. They simply move where the energy feels honest. Because they noticed the truth from the beginning, who cared because they meant it, and who cared because it was easy. And they choose, always, to keep the genuine ones close, and the convenient ones at a distance. They notice the emotional wounds people try to hide behind humor or confidence. Sigma empaths can see straight through the smiles people use as shields. They notice the jokes that are a little too sharp, the laughter that comes a little too quickly, the confidence that feels rehearsed rather than lived. They feel the tremor beneath the humor, the heaviness behind the charisma, the exhaustion behind the "I'm fine." While the world applauds someone for being strong, funny, or fearless, the Sigma empath senses the bruise beneath the surface, the wound someone is trying desperately to hide. And even though they feel it deeply, they pretend not to because they know that exposing someone's pain before they're ready only pushes them further into hiding. So they let the person keep their mask while silently understanding the truth behind it. They notice when a joke is actually a confession wrapped in laughter. They notice when overconfidence is really insecurity seeking applause. They notice when someone keeps conversations light because the heavier topics hurt too much. Sigma empaths read emotional pain like others read body language, effortlessly, instinctively, and without needing a single word spoken. They sense the childhood wounds behind perfectionism, the heartbreak behind humor, the fear behind arrogance. They see the quiet loneliness in someone who always plays the strong one, and they recognize the silent cry in someone who keeps everyone entertained, hoping no one will look too closely. These emotional signatures aren't hidden from the empath, they shine. But the beauty of the Sigma empath is in how they respond, not with pressure, not with pity, but with presence. They don't say, "I know you're hurting," because they know how fragile those walls are. Instead, they offer gentle understanding, deeper listening, softer spaces. They become someone the wounded person feels safe around, without knowing why. The empath's energy says, "You don't need to pretend with me," even if they never speak it aloud. Their silent compassion allows others to breathe for the first time in a long while. And often people open up to the empath without realizing what pulled them in. It was the empath's ability to see the wound beneath the mask and treat it with kindness instead of judgment. Still, Sigma empaths never forget what they notice. They store these emotional truths carefully, honoring them, protecting them, understanding them. And even if the other person continues to hide behind humor or confidence, the empath continues to see them fully, the strength, the pain, and the quiet courage it takes to hold both at once. They notice it all, and they respect the soul behind the disguise. They notice when someone envies them, even behind compliments. Sigma empaths feel envy long before it becomes visible, even when it's disguised as admiration, wrapped in praise, or softened with a smile. They sense the subtle sting beneath the words. They notice the tone that doesn't match the compliment. They notice the forced enthusiasm that hides tension. They notice the hesitation before the praise, the tightness in the voice, the micro-expression that flickers just a little too quickly. To everyone else, it sounds like support, but to the Sigma empath, it feels like competition, resentment, or insecurity gently vibrating beneath the surface. They pretend not to notice, but internally, they already understand exactly what the other person is trying to hide. Envy is one of the easiest emotional signals for an empath to detect because it bends the energy in a way nothing else does. When someone is truly happy for them, the warmth is effortless, the smile is real, the energy feels open. But when envy hides behind the compliment, the empath senses the imbalance instantly. They feel the eyes that linger a little too long on their success. They hear the subtle shift when the praise turns into comparison. They catch the passive-aggressive humor, the slight dismissiveness, the attempts to downplay the achievement, and even if the words are kind, the energy is not. A Sigma empath knows the difference perfectly. What's powerful is how gracefully they respond. They never expose the jealousy. They never embarrass the person. They never say, "I know you envy me." Instead, they simply adjust the connection. They become more careful with what they share. They celebrate themselves quietly. They distance their vulnerability from people who cannot hold their victories without feeling threatened. Sigma empaths don't punish envy. They protect themselves from it. because they understand that envy, no matter how disguised, eventually reveals more about the other person than the compliment ever did. And while the empath may still interact with the envious person, they will never trust their support again. They'll never seek validation from them. They'll never share their deepest wins or dreams because they noticed from the very first compliment that didn't feel clean. What others heard as praise, the Sigma empath felt as warning. Their intuition caught the jealousy behind the words, and once they felt that energy, they never forget it. They notice the exact moment a relationship begins to change, fade, or break. Sigma empaths feel the shift the moment it happens. The instant a relationship stops expanding and starts shrinking, they notice the exact second when the warmth cools, when the rhythm breaks, when something that once felt effortless suddenly becomes heavy. Others might say it happened slowly, but the empath can pinpoint the moment with painful precision. It might be in a delayed reply that never would have happened before, a tone that feels unfamiliar, a conversation that suddenly lacks depth, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. They feel the fracture before it's visible, before it's spoken, before the other person even realizes they've already begun drifting away. And though they pretend not to notice, the empath's heart registers the change instantly. The connection is shifting. As the relationship fades, the signs become clearer, but the Sigma empath saw them long before. They feel emotional distance, like a temperature drop. They sense when affection becomes routine instead of heartfelt, when communication becomes obligation instead of desire. They see when someone stops showing up with intention, when effort turns into excuses, when closeness turns into convenience. They feel the emotional door closing even while the other person still smiles, still laughs, still pretends everything is fine. It's not the big moments that reveal the end, it's the small ones, and Sigma empaths notice every single one with a sensitivity that feels like both a gift and a wound. But what makes them powerful is their response. They don't chase, they don't beg, they don't cling to a connection that's already dissolving. Instead, they begin withdrawing quietly, respectfully, and with heartbreaking grace. They stop overextending, they stop pouring into a space where the energy is no longer reciprocated. They start building an emotional boundary around their heart, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. By the time the other person finally says something feels different, the empath has already accepted the truth. They felt the moment the relationship turned a corner, long before anyone else dared to look. And while they may mourn the loss, they never deny the reality. Sigma empaths don't hold on to relationships that have stopped breathing. They honor the ending with dignity. They grieve quietly, they release gently, because the moment they felt the shift, the moment the connection began to fade, they already knew the path forward. They don't fear endings, they understand them. And they walk away with the same emotional clarity they sensed from the very beginning, the moment everything changed. Sigma empaths move through the world with eyes that see everything and a heart that stays silent until the truth is undeniable. They notice the shifts, the lies, the wounds, the envy, the fading connections, and every hidden intention people assume they've concealed. But they don't expose it, they don't confront it. They simply adjust, evolve, protect their peace, and move in alignment with what their intuition already whispered. Their power comes not from reacting, but from knowing, quietly, deeply, unshakably. And anyone who underestimates that awareness eventually realizes the truth. You can hide your words, but you can't hide your energy from a Sigma empath. Now let me ask you something real. Have you ever pretended not to notice something someone thought they hid from you? Share your experience in the comments. Another empath will read it and feel understood instantly. And if this video resonated with your soul, make sure you subscribe to Brainy Empath. This is where your intuition, sensitivity, and emotional intelligence are celebrated, not questioned. If you watched until the end, type "I see the unseen," so I know you're one of the Sigma empaths who notices everything and speaks only when it matters.